From Citizens Are Not Slaves. Usually I'm with Trending Insurrection, but today I'm just going solo and I'm talking a little bit about things that are happening in the media. Um, basically, I was on Twitter earlier today and I see Dan Bongino stating that we need to defend the police. And I think, I mean, the way this strikes me is pretty much the same way that Believe All Women strikes me. In other words, you can't really defend the police as a group because there are bad police. We know there are bad police. And I think this is what I've been saying for a long time. I've been, telling people on Twitter we need police accountability. We need police accountability because there are bad cops. And as long as there are bad cops sharing the uniform with good cops, when a cop comes up to me, I can't trust him. I actually look at that cop and I go, okay, you're suspect at this point. And I've seen enough bad action by police that does not get accountability, that does not, Philando Castile was actually let off. The murderer of Philando Castile was let off. If you see enough bad behavior by police, you're going to start to think that police think they can do whatever they want. They can literally murder people and get away with it. And there's a lot of sympathy out there to quote unquote bad shoots. Now we did a live stream on this on the other channel. Just the other day we talked about the 13 lawful justifications for the use of lethal force, and I was trained on that in the Marine Corps. And we talked about the difficulty that police have in figuring out whether or not they're going to shoot. This is my first live stream from this particular location, so I'm just kind of figuring things out here. But we can't do this. We can't just say defend all police when we know police are doing bad things. The defend all police is like the conservative version of Believe All Women. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. What this results in is basically a tribal trench warfare, right? So you have the BLM is, their tribe, and you have the Believe All Women. The Me Too movement has become their tribe. And like, for instance, the Me Too movement, right? Believe All Women. They have a tribe, and they are, totally against anybody doing anything to women that their women didn't consent to. And then all of a sudden, an accusation comes out against Biden, and they're like, we're going to overlook that. And what that proves is that instead of being principled movements, these are tribalist movements. In other words, if you're in the group, then you're fine, and you can do whatever you want, and they won't really do much to you. But if you're outside of the group, then you have a problem. And that is a problem for us. Like, that is a problem for humanity, for the United States. We can't have these tribal groups basically saying, well, if you do something wrong, then as long as you're part of our group, it's okay. And that's what my fear is, my concern is with the defend police movement, right? This idea that if somebody is a cop, they must be a good person. Well, that's absolutely not true. We know that police officers are actually disproportionately sociopaths. So the power draws people who are not good. The power attracts bad people to the job. We need to recognize that as a fact. We need to guard against it. And when police break the law, they need to be held accountable. Now, I'm personally in favor of invoking the 14th Amendment and the Section 4 of the Constitution on this, right? The 14th Amendment basically says that if the federal government cannot violate your rights, then neither can the states. It's a pretty simple and obvious thing, but up till that point, states' rights kind of trumped individual rights. So we had to pass the 14th Amendment, and that was the Republican Party, by the way. Though I'm going to flame them in a second because I'm not part of that tribe either. Anyway, if the state is violating the rights of citizens, then the federal government has a duty and a role to step in. Now, particularly when the state has their own actors do things that are clearly not even legal in the state, right? Like murdering somebody is not legal, but for some reason, when a police officer murders somebody, most of the time they circle the wagons. And a great example of this would be the gentleman, I think his name was Scott or something like that, in South Carolina. This is the guy that got shot in the back 8 times. And it was on video, so everybody knows the video now. But what people don't know is that for a week, that video didn't come out. That video didn't come out right away, right? It came out a week later. So during that week, the cops had a body, a dead body with 8 bullets in the back, and they decided to say that it was a justified shooting. The police and the coroner said, oh, there's nothing to see here. It's fully justified. And then they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar because the video came out and showed that it clearly was not justified. And that's the problem. That's the problem that we have. We have unjustified actions by police that are being counted as justified because it is their friends that are investigating them. That is a problem. If you can't see that that's a problem, then you're blind. That is a problem. You have to open your eyes and accept the fact that if you are outside of police, that looks terrible. I'm not a police officer, and to me, that looks like police officers could just murder whoever they want and get away with it. And if you're, if you're a young black man in the United States and you look at it, that's what you see too. You see the police murdering people, and here I got 2 situations, and they're just going to get away with it. Now, after that video came out, to South Carolina's credit, they did prosecute the police officer and convict him. So there is that. He did eventually get convicted, but what did it take to get him convicted, right? Like a video showing that he completely murdered somebody just out of sheer laziness by shooting him in the back 8 times. That's crazy. We need to have justice that doesn't require that. I mean, that standard of evidence, like you have to prove that the officer was just a lazy bastard that shot somebody in the back 8 times. We can't have that as the standard. The standard has to be a fair and impartial investigation of a police officer determining whether or not they did something wrong. Now, that can be accomplished by moving that investigation up to the federal level. And I think that's really what needs to happen. All right, and this is basically all in response to what I've been seeing from Dan Bongino recently. I don't follow Dan Bongino. I'm not a friend of his on Twitter. I haven't liked any page that he's a part of. And for some reason, I just keep seeing all of this stuff that he puts out because it's conservative clickbait, right? I happen to be conservative. Most of my friends are conservative. So, and I know you're thinking, well, how's this guy? He wants police accountability. He must be a criminal. Actually, that's a really interesting point because not everybody, but a couple people that I've said this to online have gone on to say things like, well, you were probably trying to break the law. You're probably a criminal. You're trying to break into cars or something. Like, it doesn't help the movement. Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm part of the conservative movement, but it doesn't help our movement if we're giving cops a license to kill. It doesn't help our movement if we're basically calling people who disagree with this, and I do this too. Like, I get kind of mad at people who don't understand that defend the cops or defend all police is a terrible idea. I take each individual as an individual. If you're taking the tribe as a tribe, then you have to take if you take the tribe as a tribe, then you're basically inviting the idea that the bad cops define the good cops. We don't want that. We don't want that. So we want each individual cop to be judged on his own merit. The only way to do that is to stop being tribal about cops. You have to recognize that cops are human beings. Cops make mistakes. Cops do bad things. Cops lie. And I am personally just absolutely tired of, my county uses police to gain revenue, right? So like their whole thing is, let me see if I'm even on here. Home. Am I even on? Oh, looks like I am. I am on right now. Okay, so I'm back. I'm just wanting to make sure that I was actually doing something here. Okay, so this is I'm trying to do a philosophy channel, and it's really it's a little difficult to keep your train of thought and keep everything relevant because my mind just jumps around a lot. I don't believe that police are completely innocent all the time. I don't believe that they're always doing what they should be doing, and I know this because I've had personal experience with police officers, right? Anybody who's had personal experience with police officers knows that they're people and they sometimes screw up. They abuse their authority and they do bad things. Now, okay, so here's I had a little note there. In this county, one of the things that we do to cops, which is a bad thing, we're making cops the enemy because we make them generate a lot of revenue for the county, right? So I don't know if this is true for every county in Florida, but it is true for most of the counties in Florida. There are definitely some counties that are like small rural counties where maybe this doesn't apply. But for most counties in Florida, speeding tickets are a huge thing. We actually have a system where we keep our speed limits depressed, and we force the cops to then try to basically write a certain number of tickets, gain revenue. Technically, it's not a quota, but it is part of their evaluation, right? So you get evaluated based on whether or not you're writing tickets. That means that you write tickets, period. Doesn't mean people speed all the time, but it means you write tickets. Now, I have a problem where basically you go to court, you're innocent until proven guilty, but the police officer has charged you with the crime. Therefore, he has accused you. You're innocent until he repeats that accusation, and that becomes evidence and therefore proof that you are guilty. In the last time that I went to court, the judge, actually magistrate, right, said that the police officer had met his burden because I didn't say a magic phrase. That means that the police officer was simply believed, okay? And the burden of proof was placed on me to prove a negative, to prove that something hadn't happened. Now, it's very difficult to prove that something hasn't happened. I don't know if you've ever been in the position of trying to prove that, but it's not fun. So, I am tired of the system basically saying, hey, cops are perfect and infallible, when in fact they are quite fallible, very human, and they will do whatever it is they need to do to get by, which means lie, cheat, steal, whatever it is that they have to do in their particular situation, they'll do it because they're human, and humans do that kind of stuff. I am under no misconception that police are somehow more noble than your average citizen. The other thing that we get into a lot is where police are basically trained to mistrust the average citizen. They will say it's me or them. There's a lot of that. You hear that a lot. When you talk to police officers, they will actually tell you that if you don't do everything they say to do, that they might have to shoot you because their safety trumps everything. That can't be an acceptable position for police to take. Your safety is not above everything else. In fact, you're there to serve us. So if your safety is higher in your mind than everybody else's, you have a problem. That is, Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. But that love your neighbor as yourself is the logical basis for what law is supposed to be. You're supposed to put everyone on an equal playing field. That means you are on an equal playing field and are the same importance as every other human being. And that's how law is supposed to operate. However, police basically pervert that when they put their own life above that of everyone else in the community. And I've heard this. I talk to police not much anymore, but I have in the past talked to them all the time, and tried to get at the underlying philosophy. And they think that my grandmother, could be a criminal. And my grandmother might pull a sawed-off shotgun out from underneath her car. I mean, get this, right? The police officer that I was talking to who actually said this said a sawed-off shotgun. My grandmother might have a sawed-off shotgun. Now, in case you don't, let me break that down a bit, right? A sawed-off shotgun is illegal. It's illegal, right? So instead of my grandmother having a normal gun that she could just go buy legally, she's going to go buy a shotgun and do an illegal modification on it so she can hide it under her seat, her car seat. Instead of just getting a regular old handgun that you can easily hide under your car seat. So, like, this is the thinking that they have, is like everybody is bad, everybody is wrong, and everybody basically could be about to kill me. And so I have to constantly be on the lookout, and this results in basically fear shooting, right? So in dogs, they talk about fear biting because, when a dog gets really afraid, they will bite out of fear. Well, that's basically what we have with the police, right? They shoot out of fear. I have heard, and I've heard this from a rather authoritative source in my view, that these are not military members, right? So if you were on the battlefield in Afghanistan or Iraq, you know that the rules of engagement there were rather strict. You could not shoot back at somebody unless you could see who it was that was shooting at you. So if somebody was shooting from a covered position where you were actually not able to see them, you couldn't shoot back. If you lost sight of somebody and they basically just started casually walking away, like let's say a sniper was 1,000 feet away from you and was trying to shoot you, missed, didn't get anybody, but then they go downstairs of a building and they exit the building and they're literally carrying their sniper rifle as they walk away, you can't shoot at them anymore because you lost sight of them. Doesn't mean they didn't get shot, but I mean, you couldn't shoot. The rules of engagement said you couldn't shoot. So people who have been in these war situations and understand the rules of engagement just a little bit better than like your average police officer who will, blow somebody away if they were quote unquote reaching for their belt or something like that, are usually better off. Now, another thing, I saw Jacko. I don't know what his last name is. I just know him as Jacko. He's like huge Navy SEAL. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast recently. And his point was that police need a lot more training. And I think that's absolutely true. Right now, especially here, okay, in this county and in this state, we are treating our police as a tax revenue, a revenue generating, basically business unit, right? They're not a cost center. They're supposed to be like a revenue center. That's not how we should treat police. Police are a thing that society pays for. We have to have police that we pay for, and we have to train them. They should be spending about, Jacko thinks about 20% of their time training. I think that is probably a good starting point. If they will train more often, they will have fewer bad shoots. They will be better at shooting. They will be more confident in their de-escalation drills, things like that. That is what we really need to see as a society. That's where we want to go, right? So federal investigation of police that do bad things, and then we want the state to start treating police better. Not using them in the way that they're currently using them, because they're currently using them in bad ways. I see that here. A lot of people, we see, if you go to New York and you go to California, you're going to see police being treated badly, right? Now, I've seen the police in California are crazy, okay? I was over in California a couple years back, and I actually saw a police officer basically get on the highway and literally swerve between the left and right-hand lane. Like, they were just driving crazy. And then, at some point, they just got off the road. But they slowed traffic down to a crawl, which had absolutely no purpose as far as I can tell. They just got on the road and started abusing their power. Now, if that was here, I would have had something to say about it because I'm politically connected here. I know people here. I could have gotten at least to the point where we could have identified the police officer and maybe had a stern talking to or something like that. But in California, I had no idea how to do that. So I think when you see cops acting like that, right? And you see cops shooting people on the news and nothing happens. And then you see, like, in my local situation, I see police just basically going into court and whatever they say is the law. Whatever they say is absolute fact. That bothers me. Like, all of that stuff together really bothers me. And I do not support that, okay? I do not support that, like, level of whatever police say goes. Here's another thing that really bothers me. Every police officer that I've talked to says that when you're on the street and they're saying something to you, even if they know they're wrong, you have to do whatever they tell you to do. That is why this channel is called Citizens Are Not Slaves. If I have to obey your orders in real time, even if you're telling me to do something that's unlawful or wrong or whatever, then I'm your fucking slave. I'm a slave. I don't have rights, and I'm a slave. That's unacceptable. I joined the Marine Corps because I'm willing to die for freedom, and I am still willing to die for the freedom of this nation. My question to cops is, are you willing to die for tyranny? Because that seems like what you're pushing to me. To me, it seems like if you're saying that I don't have a right to resist a police officer who knowingly is violating the law and telling me to do something unlawful in the moment, then I'm not really free. And if you're arguing that we're not really free, then I can't accept your argument that we should in any way defend police. All right, well, that, I think, should be the end of this video. And hopefully we've given people something to think about. I'm a conservative. I don't hate police. I want police to be better. And I want us to treat police better. I want us to not put police in the position where they have to act badly. So let's think about that, and maybe we can come together. All right, you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening.